welcome to Get on the Ark. I'm here with John Richardson Jr. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you, Darren. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited that we got to see each other again. Like I told you pre-show, I consider my podcast partners like friends and we're on this mission together to get the truth out there and let people know that there's hope in healing, and that we've had the answer for so many years, and it's great to let your audience be reminded, maybe hear this for the second or third time, that cancer is a metabolic deficiency disease. And so we really do believe at Operation World Without Cancer that we can get rid of it. We can get rid of it completely, so that our kids and grandkids only know about it from textbooks.
Yeah. Well, and I know the journey started with your father, and it's a crazy story, but it's a amazing story because it's still alive and moving forward in what you're doing with RNC Store. But if you could share with the audience, a little bit about the journey of what your father went through. And
yeah, my dad was a medical doctor trained at University of Rochester Medical School. He was an undergraduate at Hamilton College, and he was a 4 varsity sport athlete, head of the Honor Corps, which they don't have anymore, but that was a student-led organization that kept people honest, students honest, not cheating. And if somebody goes caught cheating, they would go up against it. I have to explain that sometimes because this generation doesn't know anything about that. But when he went to medical school, he was determined to change the world, and so he studied hard and was at the top of his class at University of Rochester Medical School in upstate New York. And then he did his residency at Mary Jean Bassett Hospital in New York City. And after 10 years, he graduated and decided to move to California, get married, start having kids. And he was determined, like I said, to change the world. But once he got out of medical practice, he started seeing that only thing he learned in medical school was basically one half of the menu, as they say. He only knew answers to things, but from a pharmaceutical or big medicine point of view, he looked back and said, I got about 17 hours of nutritional education. So when he was talking to naturopaths or homeopaths or chiropractors, he found that they knew more about health and nutrition than he did. So it was a transition going into practice that he felt he just felt that he had lacked that part of the education. So as he moved into his practice, he was open to looking at other things. But when he would get a patient with cancer, that the patients would if they presented with cancer, he would send them off to the oncology department at a local oncology or a local hospital, and they would never be seen from him again. My dad was the type of doctor that always wore a suit and tie, even at 2:00 in the morning on a house call. I don't know if you remember house calls, but as a kid, I remember my dad getting up and leaving the house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to deliver a baby or to visit a patient at their house, because that's what doctors did. They weren't about loading their patients into the medical industrial complex as a profit center. So that's just the kind of doctor Dad was. So in the 60s, he ran for Congress twice. He lost narrowly. A friend of his, Dr. McDonald, like Dr. Larry McDonald, did win in Georgia. And so he had a friend in the Congress. So in the early 70s, Dad had done a lot of research about Dr. Ernst Krebs in San Francisco, who had a clinic over there that was having tremendous success treating cancer patients with metabolic therapy, including vitamin B17, also known as amygdalin. And when purified, Dr. Krebs Jr., the son of Dr. Krebs Sr., who had used amygdalin in the 1920s, as far back as 100 years ago, he used the amygdalin found in apricot seeds to help people not have cancer, and also treat or use as an adjunctive therapy for cancer back in the 1920s. So Dad learned about Krebs in San Francisco. It was just across the bay, because my dad's practice was in Albany, California, which is near Berkeley, the conservative enclave of Berkeley, California. Joke about that because he ran for Congress under the title God, Family, and Country. So of course he lost, but even in those days he lost narrowly. So when he first came across the subject, our cat Spooky had a large tumor on the side of its neck, and he took it to the veterinarian. The veterinarian said, we can do the same things you do with human patients. We can give them chemotherapy. Well, first we'll remove this large mass. Then we'll give them chemotherapy and radiation. We'll charge you about $2,000. And the cat will probably live, 6 months. The kids can, be happy that they can say goodbye. Maybe it'll live 6 months to a year. And of course, in 1970s, a $20 gold piece sold for like $20 or $30, or maybe 40. But you can imagine what kind of money $2,000 was as compared to today. So, today gold's at $3,500, for a $20 gold piece. So Dad decided this was the perfect time to try this therapy of Dr. Krebs that he was using on humans in San Francisco and having these unbelievable results. Dad could try it on the cat without risking his license or bringing in the ire of the FDA. So he did. Our cat Spooky responded beautifully. The tumor shrunk and basically fell off, and leaving just the absence of the tumor. But the cat responded so well that Dad thought he had found the silver bullet. But as fate would have it, his favorite nurse's sister came down with cancer at the same time. Was diagnosed. I don't even like to say that came down, because cancer is a metabolic deficiency disease. She was diagnosed at Kaiser Hospital with stage 4 cancer, and they said, you've got tumors throughout your arm. It's throughout your body, your spleen, everywhere, and we need to remove your arm and then immediately start chemotherapy and radiation, and we could probably get you a good solid year of life. Even with stage 4, and then there's a 10% chance we can get you to 5 years, which is what they call the cure. Is if you survive chemo, radiation, surgery for 5 years, you've been cured of cancer. So using radiation. So anyway, she did not want to remove her arm, but she did agree to doing the chemotherapy, and she did the chemotherapy, and it was so horrible, Darren, that her hair started falling out. She was sick. She was throwing up. She just felt horrible. And she told her sister, Charlotte Anderson, my dad's favorite nurse, that she would rather die of the effects of the cancer than go through any more therapies at Kaiser Hospital. So she began begging my father to use the same cat-tested therapy on her, in spite of the risks to my dad's license and the fear that maybe the big medical establishments would come against it. She agreed to keep it kind of hush hush, but she said she wanted Dad to treat her and be patient zero. So Dad prayed a lot about it, thought a lot about it, reread his Hippocratic oath that he pledged, which is to first do no harm. He knew from all the studies he had read about B17 that there was no side effects. There was nothing negative. There was complaints that it didn't work, or that it could be poisonous if you use too much of it or whatever. But he tried it on. He went over to San Francisco, got the course from Dr. Krebs, including the B17, the B15, and then the pancreatic enzymes, which are so important to Krebs's metabolic therapy, because the pancreatic enzymes are like kind of the first line to take the outer slimy coating of the tumors that Mildred had away, so that the immune system could recognize it as something foreign to the body, and then the B17, B15, all the rest could kill that cancer. So Dad with high hopes and Mildred with high hopes started the same therapy on Mildred, and miraculously at the time she had amazing results. And so within weeks, she was feeling better. The tumors were shrinking. Many of them were going away. She felt her appetite come back. Her hair was growing back. She felt a zest for life. Her quality of life was markedly improved, within weeks. And then a couple months later, Kaiser talked her in. They were calling her, we didn't have text or emails then. So they were just calling her to get her to come back in for more chemotherapy, but she refused. And so she finally agreed to go back and have a check on her. And when she went back, they told her, this panel of 4 doctors that were on her case said, we don't know what happened, but you're cancer free. And she said, what have you done? What have you been doing? And she said, I've just been eating better and praying and relax, and lowering my stress, and I've stopped eating meat. And they said, well, maybe it's because of the chemotherapy we gave you. Maybe it's delayed effects of that chemotherapy. And can we do more studies on you? Can we do some more chemo on you and see how the results are? And really, this is a miraculous thing. And she said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, well, we definitely all agree, all 4 of us agree, we still need to remove your arm. And she said, she said she was like dumbfounded. Wait a minute, you just said I was cancer free. Why do you need to remove my arm? And they told her that, well, because it always comes back. When we do chemo or radiation or surgery, most of the time it comes roaring back. So we find that if we remove that organ when we've killed the cancer, that stops it from coming back. So we think we should remove the arm. And she politely declined and went home, told the story to her sister, and lived a long life after that. It even ran into my dad at a wedding 6 years later, where she ran up to him with tears in her eyes and thought of my dad as a hero. And they grabbed each other's hands, and both of them realized not only did she have both of her hands, but she was alive far past the 1 year or the 5 years that they said would have been a 10% success story. And she was living a life free from cancer. Now, she was not cured. I want to make sure that we don't offer a cure. This is a metabolic therapy that allows your immune system to fight off the cancer. That's the whole difference between the normal oncology, which is cut, burn, poison, and metabolic therapy, which is all about making better choices about what you eat, how you exercise, the water you drink, and all that stuff. So she continued that, and my dad also realized that she had changed his life completely, because now he was on a path of treating thousands of patients with this therapy that he would never learn in medical school, and having a miraculous, he described as miraculous success stories as compared to oncology departments out there. He was having statistics up to over 80% of the people were living longer, living better lives, getting their appetite back, like 86%, even if they had destroyed their immune system by cutting out organs, doing 20 courses of deadly chemotherapy, and then taking 30 courses of high dose radiation. Even if they had done that, he still found a tremendous amount of success. And that's what started it for my dad. But that also is when the demonization and the attack on my dad started as well.
Wow. And so then at this point, is this when he wrote the book?
Well, what happened at this point was that he started, by word of mouth, he started treating, thousands of patients over the next 6 years. His practice was described by my brother and sister who were working there. They were in their 20s, as like, it was just crowded with people. And, people were constantly trying to get appointments, and they were coming in because they heard this news. He wasn't advertising this. He was kind of keeping it hush hush, but he was having such a great success. And the market thing was that, unlike other clinics where people would come in and they had this horrible smell and people were sad and they were miserable, at my dad's clinic, everybody was happy and looking forward to life, and they were getting their appetites back and hair growing back and these miraculous results. But at the same time, the establishment did not like this. And so the first time that he felt the wrath of the establishment, he was getting letters, what are you doing? This is, this is quackery from the California AMA. But they raided his medical practice in the summer of 1972. This was the first time. And who showed up? The FDA with rifles, the local police department, and the local news media, for the first time my dad had ever seen. Why when they're going to arrest some doctor for doing nothing wrong, why did they have the news media show up? So that kind of started, but that kind of backfired on the system, because that also made my dad almost an instant celebrity in the Bay Area. And an organization was started called the Cancer Control Society. Within months, they became incorporated in months of my dad being arrested. They took his files, they kicked out patients, they arrested his nurses and himself and took him to jail, booked him into jail. What? People go, what was he doing? They booked him under California's anti-quackery law. Although they couldn't find a single patient, Darren, not one patient that would go against my dad, said that he had done anything wrong, said that he had misled them, said that he lied or cheated or did anything that was harmful to them. On the contrary, we got hundreds of letters. He got so many letters that this is just a sampling of these letters. If you look, they're handwritten letters that his patients were sending, saying he was doing miraculous work with them. But that didn't stop the system. That just fired them up. So they raided his practice 8 times over the next 6 years. They arrested him twice, at least, that I know of. One time was on the way going into Congress to testify about metabolic therapies as opposed to dental therapy. And they sued him 4 times. In federal court, they sued him over, these ridiculous laws that he had a license to treat people. He was allowed to cut, burn, and poison people, but he wasn't allowed to give them a clearly effective natural treatment because it wasn't profitable for the big medicine or the big pharmaceuticals. It was a threat to their bottom line. And so when he released his book in 1978, documented proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that his therapy worked, and he had these cases that went to an oncology department, then went through his therapy, the Richardson protocol, and then ended back at the same oncology hospital, willing to be tested again and told they were cancer free. Again, not cured, but they had no signs of cancer. And I just you wonder what these markings are. Recently, a Major League Baseball player named Ryan Sandberg died of prostate cancer. And so just out of curiosity, I looked at his story, and he had been diagnosed in August of 2024. And then he told the world in December of 2024 that he was cancer free. So, he's cured, he's cancer free. How many times do we hear that story? Well, he died 6 months later in July of 2025 of the after effects of whatever, either the after effects of the chemo, radiation, surgery that he had, or the cancer. But he clearly wasn't cured. He didn't even last a year. So I just had my assistant look up the first 3 cases that they could find. And I want to read out of my dad's book what he said about prostate cancer. He says, "It is my opinion, based on personal interviews and on correspondence with my patients at the Richardson Clinic, that the reason the men with cancer of the prostate, that the reason that they do so well, even if they have metastases into lymph nodes and bone, is that the most consistently faithful to all aspects of the regimen, including the diet. It seems to me that if the drive to maintain a state of general health were strong in all patients, as the drive to preserve potency appears to be in males, as males, we don't want to lose our potency. We don't want to die of prostate cancer. There would be an increase in survival rates that would amaze not only the skeptics, but the lateral enthusiasts as well." Those are my dad's words. And these are 3 documented cases where he allowed the people to increase their immune system and erase the cancer in their system, so much so that they live long lives and didn't die of prostate cancer. So that's a recent story in the news. But here's the kicker. This is the year that my dad came out with this book, co-written by G. Edward Griffin's wife. I don't know if you know who G. Edward Griffin is, or your audience may. He wrote the book Creature from Jekyll Island partially at my family ranch as I was growing up. After he wrote the book World Without Cancer, his wife, Pat Griffin, co-authored this with my dad and said the stories that were in here, she was a registered nurse. She's alive today. She said the stories aren't the most miraculous cases, John. These are just the cases that would go back to their original oncology department, even under fear of retribution, to be proven that they indeed were cancer free. So out of the thousands of cases, Pat Griffin, she just recently told me this, there was many, many more miraculous cases, but what happened to Dad is that drove them to finally take away his license. And a story I don't tell a lot, but Pat Griffin told me the story with tears in her eyes, is when Dad was going up against the medical board in California to have his license removed, he had one of the doctors on the panel that was commissioned to take his license away to hear the testimony that he was treating. My dad was actually treating this doctor that was on the panel for his cancer using metabolic therapy and treating him successfully. So Dad felt, I have a kind of ace in the hole on the medical board. Well, instead of being Dad's ace in the hole in the medical board, that doctor resigned from the commission to take away my dad's license days before my dad's case came up. And not only did my dad get his license taken away by a vote of 2-1, he was shocked in doing that, but my dad continued to treat that doctor that quit and successfully treated him for his cancer, even after he as a coward resigned from that commission. I don't tell that story a lot, but I'm reminded of it just to see how not only how the system was against my dad, but also what a honorable man my dad was, that this was a battle that he fought because of people like Mildred or other people that like this young man who's in the middle of the book, that the establishment tried to say this was all made up, that Dad lied about, these were not even the same person, but these are certified x-rays from the same hospital. This is a young man, 6 years old, named Shane Horton, who had metastases in the bone here. And then here he is. Here's the same child with the same bone months later after going through my dad's metabolic therapy. How do I know about Shane? Because he was the exact same age as me when he was treated at my dad's clinic. And this fence was a fence that we would jump over together to go to the bowling alley that was next to my dad's clinic in Albany. Shane is still alive. He's a 60-year-old Alaskan king crab fisherman, and he still grounds, takes his shoes off and grounds. Anybody knows about that? And takes Laetrile and apricot seeds to this day. Still cancer-free after being sent home to die. So this is not something that happened to just one person, or just, it's not just one case or some obscure treatment that, you have to go, to, be buried in an Amazon rainforest. This is something that is in our food that is naturally occurring and found in over 1,200 different foods. And my dad suffered the consequences of being a hero to treat people, so that he lost his license in 1978, spent the next 7 years talking to other doctors, speaking at conventions, going on the news. But finally, in 1985, during open heart surgery, the doctor who was on his case for the first time allowed air to go into his blood. He had a brain aneurysm and fell into a coma, which he died of in October of 1988. So he was way too young. He was 66 years old, but he was a hero. But he wasn't the only hero. There's many, many more, Darren, that we're discovering. And so I've devoted my life over the last 25 or 30 years to keep telling my dad's message, quietly for many years. But as of 7 years ago, after BuzzFeed did a hit piece on me and my father, I decided, and they drove over 50,000 people to click through our links to go to the website. I decided it's the time for me to dig in and tell this story and not be afraid. And they've come after us. They've censored us about every way they possibly can. If you mention RNC Store on YouTube, you'll get your video deleted. It's just, why are we over the target? Why are they censoring us? Because we're over the target. But we've seen just in the past 2 years, and even more so in the last year, but even in the last 6 months, an absolute renaissance in this information be accepted by the marketplace. because of all the documented history we have, including the history found in the vault. The vault is a 60-year collection from that organization that started after my dad was arrested, called the Cancer Control Society, that the three-letter agencies were constantly attacking and raiding the president's houses, and they weren't even treating patients. They were just telling this story. But we absolutely rescued this 60 years of documented history, so much so that it even boggles my mind. We find new information every day in this vault. We've only gotten through half of it, and it's just shocking how many case histories, how many books, how many studies have been done about the subject of amygdalin in the prevention and the eradication by your body of a disease that is nothing more than a deficiency disease.
Wow. And have you noticed, you said about 7 years or 8 years ago where you came out and started really charging forward with the RNC store. Do you notice that there's been a change in the narrative across the country in terms of cancer? It never made sense to me why these cancer hospitals just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, cancer used to be like something you'd never heard of, like it was rare. Now it's like, as common as the flu.
Yes. The word narrative, I want to just kind of answer that. I've seen a change in the perception of the common person that's out there, unlike anything I've ever seen. Usually 7 years ago, I wouldn't be embarrassed to tell what I did or tell the story, but I'd have to be careful of who I was talking to, because the instant thing, if I ever said anything about apricot seeds, oh, you're poisoning people. That's cyanide poisoning in there, and that terrible. So I was sensitive to that 7 years ago. I've been eating them since childhood. I've been eating them 50 years. I know they weren't poisonous. We don't. G. Edward Griffin just recently again reiterated that in the 50 years that he's written this book dedicated to my father, he doesn't know of a single person that regularly eats amygdalin, also known as nitrillicides or Laetrile, that's ever died of cancer. Now, that doesn't mean somebody that was, stage 4, surgery, chemo, radiation, and then starting apricot seeds and they died anyway. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about preventatively. And so to speak of the change in the narrative, what I want to do is copy into the group chat an article, like I told you about the BuzzFeed article 7 years ago where they demonized me. They said my dad was a criminal. They said all this stuff. But BuzzFeed came out with an article about the Hunzas of northern Pakistan, and I'm going to copy it. I don't know if you can bring it up and show it to your audience. But BuzzFeed said that the Hunzas of northern Pakistan, they're not, a conservative bastion of conservative news, and they don't come up with natural treatments for things. But they said the Hunzas, the people in this remote valley lived to 100. They follow 5 distinct diet and lifestyle habits for longevity. And would you believe that if you scroll down on this article, it says, number 1, they consume apricot seeds and oil from the apricot seed. The oil that is pressed out of the apricot seed, much like what we have on RNC store. And then it goes to say studies have shown that apricot seeds can help fight cancer and other sources of inflammation in the body, in part due to a compound called amygdalin. So, I mean, that's earth-shattering news, incredible, news that I've been fighting to get told for 7 years. But this article came out in February of 2024. It's almost like they got to tell you the truth so that when people start to discover what cancer really is and how they've been cut, burned, and poisoned, and family members have been cut, burned, and poisoned, all for profit. When if you studied this subject, you can see that people are actively know that when you link to that article, it says amygdalin has been shown to cause apoptosis, which is cell death in cancer cells. Your audience can click that and link to the study on your own. So the last 7 years, I've been gathering studies and books and documentations and speeches, and so much so, my friend, that it's overwhelming the amount of proof that's been covered up, things that I never even knew about. And so the acceptance by the general public has increased tenfold, if not 100-fold, because of what we just went through with COVID. What we saw with COVID is a microcosm over this last 5 years of they lied to us about ivermectin. They lied to us about vitamin D. They lied to us about, what really was people needed. So much so that a recent study, I was told by Callie Means on a conference call on Wednesday, he works for the White House. He said that they just did a study that 90% of the general public does not trust the medical industrial complex like they did 5 years ago. Whether it's completely don't trust or certain levels, or they won't just blindly get a new medication that their doctor recommends without understanding it. People are advocating for their health. 90%. So yes, my friend, it has changed, but still over probably 99 or 98% of the population still, when they hear you should eat apricot seeds, you should eat apple seeds, they think, oh, that's poison. Oh, don't eat that. That's poison. They believe what they've been told their whole lives, even though they don't trust the medical establishment. They still believe it. So it's a continuing battle that I fight every day. And that's why, as I told you before I came on, I'm scheduled to do 400 podcasts this year. I mean, to tell this story to anybody brave enough to listen and brave enough to tell it, because we really, by founding Operation World Without Cancer on the 50th year anniversary of this book, World Without Cancer, we really believe, actually, we know we can wipe out cancer, just like in the Hunza village in northern Pakistan, where they eat 200 apricot seeds a day, and other societies, the Balkans, the Russian countries like Uzbekistan, they eat apricot seeds like candy as youths, and they don't have cancer. And wild animals that eat nitrillicides in nature, 30% of the foods that wild animals eat don't have cancer. But when they go to the zoo and now they start eating processed foods like Americans do, our food is so over processed that we don't have any nutrients in it, let alone any nitrillicides, amygdalin, that is found in. We found this book in that vault I talked about. It's not available to purchase, but I just want to show you there is natural sources of B17 in over 1,200 different foods. Let me just read a couple of them. People will be surprised. Cashews, bitter almonds, macadamia, alfalfa seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, sesame, linseed, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. Lots of these foods that we no longer eat. When's the last time you had lima beans, barley, millet, sorghum molasses? How about lentil soup? This is a diet now. The American diet is bereft, doesn't have any amygdalin anymore. So if we ate the same foods we did at the turn of the century, our cancer rates would be much lower, even with 5G and cigarettes. And, every day we find a new thing that causes cancer. Cancer is not caused by anything external. It's allowed to happen by the fact that our immune system is so destroyed that cancer develops, and it's a deficiency disease. It's not the tumor that is the disease. It's the fact that your body's immune system was not able to kill the cancer when it occurred.
Yeah. So the RNC store, you can get the seeds, or you can get tell us about the products that you offer.
Yeah, at rncstore.com. You can go there. I always tell people you can do some research on our site. You can do some research on some other platforms. You can understand it. You can ask questions. But there's 4 movies on our website that you can go and watch today for free, and they're called World Without Cancer by G. Edward Griffin. It's a movie made in the 70s. We're trying to recreate that. A Second Opinion about the studies done on Laetrile at Sloan Kettering, and then Cut, Poison, Burn is another movie that you can watch by Frank Torchia about Dr. Brzezinski in Houston, who was using interferons and Laetrile and other natural things. They went after him, sued him like they did my dad. He ended up winning, but he was so shell-shocked you hardly hear about him anymore. So that's number one. You can go there and spend hours on our website getting this information under the resources tab. Or you can just go to, if you want to get apricot seeds in your life and you want to spend less than $40 for a 5-month supply, we have bags of seeds available. As I said, I eat regularly 40 apricot seeds a day. We always recommend you start slow and build up, not because they are poisonous. That is a lie. Not because they're poisonous, but because the results of your body's metabolism can cause you to have an upset stomach. Then if you have an upset stomach or numbness, which are all natural things that amygdalin does, people will go to Google and see, oh my God, if I eat 3 apricot seeds, I'm going to die of cyanide poisoning. So the other way that we people ask all the time, that I don't say recommend, but we suggest, is people to take the capsules, take the same thing my dad did in the prevention bundle. We have B17, vitamin B15 that oxygenates your blood, and the proenzymes, the pancreatic enzymes I talked about that help eat the outer coating of the tumor. Those are available in our prevention bundle. And to make it even more affordable, people can sign up to have it auto shipped every 90 days. And that way they just take one of these capsules a day for less than $1 a day, literally. And they have all the nutrients that they need to make sure that their immune system has those nutrients that biochemically will kill cancer before it ever metastasizes. Now, I'm not saying we're treating cancer or we're curing cancer. We're just giving people the nutrients that are taken out of our diet in America and putting them back in. And my dad said in a book written by, I found this in the vault, book written by an ex-FDA pharmacologist and toxicologist, she was a June Despain. She wrote this book, tongue-in-cheek, called The Little Cyanide Cookbook, all about recipes that you can have B17 in your diet without eating these bitter apricot seeds. But my dad said in the forward, and I want your audience to hear this. This was my dad who gave his life to this cause. He said, if every family could enjoy the meals from this book, we'd soon have no more cancer patients. Let us hasten that day. That was my dad said to this book, written by an FDA agent who was convinced. Originally, she thought Laetrile was a scam, fraud. It wasn't. But after studying it for 20 years at the NIH, her and Dr. Burke were Dr. Burke was with the NIH for 20 years. And he said Laetrile was the most effective, safest natural treatment for the C word that he had ever discovered. And Dr. Burke, unfortunately, died within 2 months of my dad in 1988 as well, along with another well-known doctor that had studied Laetrile at Loyola University, Dr. Harold Manor, died the same month as my dad after coming out and saying breast cancer should now be a thing of the past, mastectomies should be a thing of the past, and he died the same time. So I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. I'm just saying these 3 huge doctors in this Laetrile fight all died, but they all said that if people just took these nutrients in, that the odds of them ever getting cancer were slim and none. And so we don't call it a treatment or a cure. We say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we call it the prevention bundle. We don't say what you're preventing because we don't want to get, legally entangled, but that's the best way that we've found that people can regularly do it without the bitterness of the seeds. But if you just want the cheapest, most easiest way to do, just like the Hanzas, just buy the seeds. You can get a 2-pound bag for less than $40, and if you eat 5 to 10 a day, which is what my dad suggested, and even doctors are using it now suggest, you can get the necessary amygdalin that your body needs to help it fight against this disease called cancer.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your message. Thank you for getting on the arc. And wow, we want to spread this. And go to the rncstore.com and get your apricot seeds or your supplements. And and tell us a little bit about the oil.
Oh yeah, we've made the seed meal for years, and we had the byproduct of the oil, which we knew about, but then we started getting research from this vault about all the benefits of the oil that doesn't have B17 in it, but it has all these other amazing things that people are getting unbelievable results from putting on their skin, putting in their hair, using it to do oil pulling. So we just made it available, and here's the active ingredients in our apricot seed oil. Let me. Are you ready for this entire list?
Yeah.
Here it is: 100% pure apricot oil. That's what it is, and there's no pesticides. It's non-GMO. It's even kosher. But here it is in the apricot seed oil, and this is, we have difficulty keeping it on the shelf. This is also a product that people get on the subscription, and we have so many amazing stories. And there is no negativity from the governmental agencies about saying that there's any poison in this, because this is the oil. The seed meal is what contains the B17, because B17 is a water soluble vitamin. So the combination of it, we're finding, is doing all sorts of great things. I'm so glad you asked me about the oil, not because I want to sell more oil, but it is an important thing for people to know about for all sorts of beauty reasons. But another amazing thing that we've done since last time I was on is we've made this amazing world-changing book that explains all the science about B17, introduces you to the Hunzas of northern Pakistan, who lived to be the oldest persons lived to be 165 years old, introduces you to the Dr. Kanamitsa Segura, introduces you to my dad, and then tells you why don't we know about this for 60 years? It's all about the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and Bayer and the Nazis. Ed Griffin, who's 94, says they've never been able to refute a single fact in this book in 50 years. We've made it available free to all the listeners of your podcast, anybody that's watching this, by going to myworldwithoutcancer.com, myworldwithoutcancer.com. I'm going to type it into the chat so you can post it, worldwithoutcancer.com. No cost, zero cost to anybody. And you put your first and last name in your email, type it in, you'll go on our mailing list, but more importantly, you'll get the book for free with no strings attached. So you can read on page 111 where it's documented that someone that goes for natural therapy for the C word has a 80% chance of defeating this horrible disease. When they go for conventional therapy, they get less than 20% chance of surviving that 5 years. It's documented proof that everybody always asks for, that then you can go deeper down the rabbit hole. We have thousands of documents we can provide, but we said we want to get this book into people's hands. If you want to support Ed Griffin and continue to support his mission, please buy the hard copy, but you're not required. You can get the book for free at myworldwithoutcancer.com. You can go to the rncstore.com to get the prevention bundle and get on a subscription. So less than $1 a day, folks. As I say a lot of times, it's a no-brainer. And I tell other people, if you believe what I'm saying or you don't believe what I'm saying, what's the risk? There's no negative side effects. It's all people feel better. We have returning customers regularly that love the product and love how it makes them feel. So it's an incredible time to be alive, and we're love to have your audience support our mission to get this word out there.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for the great work, and I look forward to seeing you soon in the future. And thanks for watching.
My friend. God bless you. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.